Today we're going to talk about Estate Planning 101. The goal of this is to review the basics, understanding where you start before you step into that estate planning attorney's office, to understand the decision points that you and your spouse need to make so that you can think through properly the pros, the cons, and what to consider before you walk into that attorney's office to make everything smoother, more efficient, and to make sure that your intentions are met when you meet with an estate planning attorney. And so when you think of the world of estate planning, there are core foundational documents that you think about, and each document has decision points in it. Now, today we're not going to go into incredible depth or take a broad spectrum of all the different decisions that you can and should make as part of an estate plan. But we do want to cover the core decision points to consider with each and every document and understanding some of the basic points of what they do and why they do it. And so with an estate plan, there's really four main documents for you to consider and think about as you build out your estate plan. 2 out of the 4 deal with incapacity as opposed to death. So that is the case where you are not here to make your decisions, you're physically here, maybe you're unconscious in a hospital, whatever it may be, and you have to make a decision, or someone has to make a decision about something in your financial life or in your health care. And so those 2 documents are called powers of attorney. There is a healthcare power of attorney and then a financial power of attorney. And so the healthcare power of attorney is very simple. It says, who does the doctor talk to if you can't represent and speak for yourself? And so that document is you name someone and a backup to be considered as your agent under your power of attorney. And so as an agent under your power of attorney, that's who the doctor speaks with. And so you need to think of a trusted individual to help make those decisions for you. And that may be very different from the person that you named to cover your financial power of attorney. To be the trustee under your trust could be a very different person. You know, for example, I like to joke that if I named my older brothers as my agent under my power of attorney for healthcare, that would be a life-threatening decision for me. And so think about those things differently. And that's decision point number 1. Who makes medical decisions for you, both for initially and who is their backup? So in many cases, that's your spouse initially, but then who's that backup or backups that could serve together to make those decisions. Same principle applies for the financial power of attorney. If you can't write a check yourself, you can't pay your bills yourself because you're incapacitated, or for some clients, they're busy hiking Mount Everest and literally out of pocket for 6 to 8 weeks, who makes those decisions for them? Again, could be very different people, and you want to name someone primarily, again, commonly your spouse, and then thinking about a backup to your spouse as well. So that's decision point number 2. So far we have the healthcare agents and the financial power of attorney agents. From there, the other 2 documents deal with death. What we all know and are very comfortable with and commonly have heard throughout our life is you have a will and then usually a revocable trust agreement. The will is a little bit different these days. People have learned that a will is a public document. So most people don't want to have their will down at the courthouse, their entire estate in an inventory down at the courthouse. So a will becomes very simple. It pours over everything into your trust, and you simply name who's the executor of your estate to make sure the assets get to where they need to be. So that's decision point number 3. Who is the executor? Commonly, that's the same person you just named under your financial power of attorney. Doesn't have to be, but it very commonly is. And the simplicity of that is very straightforward. The other decision you may make in your will depends on how old your children are. So if you have minor children, you also decide in your will who's going to take care of them. From their physical well-being, who is the legal guardian of your children. And so I'd always recommend that is the conversation that changes a lot as you go throughout life between you, your spouse, and the family or friends who you name. So that decision is broad-based. There's a lot that goes into it, but that's the 4th decision point to consider is who's the guardian of your minor children, their physical well-being. The last document is where your estate plan actually is. It's the revocable trust. It's shielded from public view, and it makes things easier and cheaper during an estate administration, so you avoid probate or going down to the courthouse. That is where the key decision points are made for your entire estate plan. There's so many decisions that need to be made in there, but I'm just going to cover 2 additional decision points to consider. One is who is the trustee if you and your spouse are no longer here. So you pass away. Who's the trustee? Not just initially to help marshal the assets, handle the estate administration, but who's in charge of, let's say, trust for your children until they reach a certain age where they can be responsible for their own funds. That's a big decision. So in the will, you name who's in charge of them physically, who's the legal guardian, In the trust agreement, you name who is in charge of their finances. Again, these are commonly, but not always, two different people of who you'd rather care for them and who you trust with the finances. And sometimes we recommend that it's great to have different people because those are different skill sets to consider. So that's decision point number 5 to think about, is who's in charge of them as a trustee and who's in charge of those assets. And number 6 is, upon your passing, how do you want your estate to go? Right? Again, it can be as detailed as is possible. We've probably seen everything. And no matter how crazy you think it is, we've probably already seen it, from dog trusts to horse trusts to creative charitable gifting that's unique, creative trust terms of when your children can access money. Those are all will be worked out. But the short is, do you want to provide for them? And in what percentage do you want to provide for them? Do you have tax considerations? Do you have charitable interest that you want to gift to? So those are the things to think about. And so in short, there's really 6 main decision points we covered with foundational documents that you should consider before you step into that attorney's office. 1 is, who's your healthcare power of attorney, your agent? Who do you name? 2, who do you name under your financial power of attorney to handle your finances, again, if you're incapacitated? 3rd is, who's the executor or personal representative of your estate under your will? 4th is, who's the guardian of your minor children, and don't forget to include backups. 5 is, who's the trustee under your will, especially as it relates to your kids, and at what age are you comfortable with them becoming their own trustee? And last, how do you want your estate to pass? From a big picture perspective, how would you like it to go? So those are the 6 main decision points to consider. And there's many more. As we said, this was not meant to be comprehensive, but this is a good starting point for us to launch into a deeper discussion with our team here at Solidarity Wealth about your estate plan, about tax planning, and what best fits your family. Because just because something works for legal purposes or for tax purposes, it has to work for your family first. And so we welcome those discussions, we encourage those discussions, and we look forward to having those discussions with you.